This story will cover from then to now and next, all about change, how to turn losers into winners. A big pond in Somerset, England. Home to birds like swallows, who hunt insects there, but also to some rather unusual special birds. But in a way they're not, because they're quite common on ponds, lakes and rivers across Britain. Their private lives are surprising. They may even shock you, with sex and violence on a gentle English pond. This is Pond 1, near Clutton in Somerset, complete with island and reed-fringed shore. Not far away, as the moorhen flies, well, sort of, is Pond 2, an old village pond in Wiltshire, also with an island that happens to float. And a willow tree which will become an unlikely part of our story of two ponds. At both ponds, the wildlife is only here because of human determination and foresight, not always evident when man connects with nature. But this time, both Somerset and Wiltshire receive a bonus, well, two wet ones, and this is that story and how it all happened. A typical West Country field and hedges. Lots of wildlife here, well, that's unless it's been sprayed out. But the good news is that it's about to be replaced, well, eventually, by something as diverse and very different. Definitely a plus. It's not looking good right now.
These pipes are 6 meters long and they're called twin wall. Is this what we're actually stood on now, is the floor of the lake? This piece here.
Yes, you want you to pull a trench up through there to the middle and then through that bank by that oak tree to let that water come through.
But the lads are on the case. Who'd have thought of them as conservationists rather than destroyers of nature?
Down to Mother Nature now to allow for the birds, the bees, you know, the grass to grow, the flowers to grow, seeds, all things like that. Like, you know, it is really down to her now, and to give us the rain to fill it up.
In 2004, not yet a home for our moorhens and coots. The twin wall pipe, 6 meters tall, is now in position as the overflow. And it just so turns out to be a nesting place for an opportunistic coot or two. And it must be love, actually. Clutton's new pond, born in 2005 or so. The village pond at Upper Wraxall was dug many more years ago, perhaps even by hand. But the result is similar. A home for wildlife, be it daffodils in March, ignored by the now resident moorhens, who found the dead leaves from last year rather more interesting. But which to choose? Who'd have thought a bird could be so fussy? But moorhens are no ordinary bird, as we'll see, as nesting gets going. No pressure then. Hoping it's acceptable on this man-made floating home. Kindly provided by the local villagers, now preparing for a communal clear-up also involving dead leaves from last year. The local drake mallard rests, as some men do, while his mate is incubating nearby, well hidden by her brown look. Unfortunately, the moorhen's nesting arrangements are at risk. The island's moving, but the frogs have seen it all before. He'll have witnessed the gentle changeover of the moorhen pair. They're almost distinguishable, male and female, sharing incubation duties. With 3 weeks to go. Calm now, but crazy later. More leaf work. Where's his mate? The hidden brown look. And there's blue here too, a problem. Testing the safety system, but also testing the resilience of the local homeowner on the floating island. They probably didn't realise who was out there. But now it isn't. But moorhens and coots are very adaptable, provided they can be based around water. After the surprise, incubation will continue. It looks like 7 eggs. The chicks too will be in for a shock. Meanwhile, back at Pond 1 at Clutton, things are much greener and grass has been planted all around. Not so much for the coots that have moved in, arguing as usual, but the sheep that will thrive here. It's thought that water birds bring in fish eggs on their feet, which sounds a bit unlikely, but how else will fish reach a new home? Are these Canada geese carrying tiny passengers? This trailer is, and not so tiny, rainbow trout, a kind of farmed trout, different from our native brown trout. Geese are not native either and have become a bit of a pest, and it seems their companion is waiting on the off chance. Cormorants catch fish probably better than people do, and it's hardly their fault if we provide the food and place for them. We put them in and we take them out and shake them all about. And they're all in black and white. Including the native tufted duck, diving for food, which flourishes as the pond matures. These are certainly not black and white, anything but. Mandarin ducks, as you might expect, come from China, where they have become quite rare. Losers, and perhaps now more breed in Britain, in tree holes, than their original home. So they're winners over here, a glamorous addition to our wetlands. Not only did this drake mandarin fly in with a female mallard, but it had to go at a drake mallard on the edge of the pond. A bit of a liberty. 2 female tufted ducks lead their new families across Clutton Pond. Number 1. probably hatched in the surrounding vegetation, now growing up nicely. Coots using floating veg as food, called, as it happens, duckweed. Perhaps it should be called cootweed. Or even swanweed. More algae here now than duckweed. Scene of a territorial dispute, it would seem. Below this green floating carpet there's another world of winners and losers. Frog tadpoles are vegetarians. Grazing on another one, a snail. Here's a carnivore lurking in the murk, a newt. And another predator, unlikely as it may look, to become a dragonfly in the sky above. Many months later, it grabs a water flea. Tadpoles could also be on the menu. And it seems everyone's menu. And that includes earthworms for the newts. The dragonfly larva has got bigger prey. For frogs, mass production is the name of the game. Only a few will survive to become adults, losing their tails and growing legs in that amazing process. But that doesn't mean they're any safer. Grass snakes pursue frogs above and below the surface at any age or stage, using their sensitive tongue on the hunt. After months hunting below the surface, the dragonfly nymph, perhaps a rather flattering name, emerges and flies away to chase aerial insects before mating quite quickly, laying eggs that will hatch to continue this extraordinary life cycle. So if you're a fisherman, a bird watcher, or in fact anyone involved with the natural world, the pond represents a community that flies in, crawls in, and may be brought in. And you don't need a twin-wall pipe, 6 meters long, a team of men, and bulldozers. All right, you won't get as much as the Clutton Pond, as we've revealed, but even the smallest garden pond will attract wildlife. And of course you can add your own, ideally native species of plant and animal. But back to Pond 2 at Upper Wraxall, Wiltshire. Compared with a nice but relatively sterile blue pond is that much older and smaller village pond. There's plenty there going on, like 9 mallard ducklings that like chasing flies. The moorhens are still here with no real parental challenges yet, but they are to come. Whilst the duck mallard has a lot to cope with, all 9 of them, and rather scattered. It's a tempting situation for a predator like a fox, a stoat, a cat, or a bird of prey, possibly looking down like this from the top of a willow tree nearby. The ducklings are on fly watch, and if 1 or 2 get separated, they could well become ex-ducklings. Now it's the moorhens' turn to be tested, and they'll need to be vigilant, not only because of the predators, but even their own parents, as we'll see soon. And they just keep on coming. Will they match the 9 of the mallards? It's possible. How the moorhens' chicks are distributed is a vital factor in their future. almost right from hatching. Because who goes with who, if anyone? And those two ashore? And those two afloat? How about the rest? And how many are there? From their low little view, they can follow that high-vis white tail above them, plus some gentle calls from the parent. For the ducklings, still 9 left, it's more do-it-yourself, though there's not much meat on a fly, hardly replacing the frenetic efforts to catch them. Both lots of chicks don't have any feathers yet, unlike their parents, who take great care of theirs. But the moorhen chicks do have big feet now, all the better to escape across the mud with from predators, and to search for food far and wide. As summer arrives, there's a bigger hunting ground along the shore for both predators and prey. The season's warming up and drying out, but that's not the only reason for a wider, muddy shoreline. There's a serious leak. The old blue plastic will need replacing, and it could be a matter of life and death for the inhabitants of this little traditional pond at Upper Wraxall, in the deepest Wiltshire countryside. Whilst over in Somerset, things are improving all the time, although is 2 black sheep in the family good news? What do you think of that? The grass is certainly greener now around the Clutton Pond. The cow will turn that into milk for her calf, well, and us too. Early June is a productive time around the pond. That applies to the coots too. As with the moorhen chicks at the other pond, how the parents and new chicks get organised is important. Friendly feeding can become this. Various theories exist. Is it a response to too much persistent begging? A rather human parallel perhaps? Or probably a way of distributing the family to the 2 parents. That is, sharing duties. Back at the village pond, only 2 moorhen chicks survive. The water level drops as the blue plastic fails. It's unattractive in a natural setting like this. The mallard parents are on their own again. The ducklings have flown, not just the nest, but the pond. It's all change. For young and old alike. Now what's this? Surely moorhens don't climb trees, they certainly don't fly very well. And what about that single chick left behind? It seems that whatever reduced the moorhen family from the original 6 to just 2, and we don't know what, might not be so successful at the top of a willow tree. It's perhaps where another nest has been built. Anyway, they're back together as what could be seen as some kind of preening competition. And there could be many more moorhens to come. They often have 3 broods, up to 20 eggs at a time, though those might be laid by 2 females combined. So both coots and moorhens can be both sexy and violent, an unlikely mixture in such quiet surroundings. This common bird of our watery places has a rather uncommon habit. A chick from a previous brood will help feeding a new brood, thus taking pressure off the parents, which can lead to aggression as we've seen. Known as a helper, It's not yet got the bright plumage of the adult, but it does have that distinctive tail. Could it even be a teenager, lending a beak rather than a hand? That's a bit of a surprise. So at both ponds, wildlife prospers. A migrating osprey might have been tempted by those rainbow trout down there. Water voles' teeth munch the veg that's grown up so much. And bulrushes hide elusive otters, not always popular with fish ponds, but it's our fault for putting their natural food there and not keeping the otters out. This story of two ponds shows how much nature can be helped on a large scale or a small one. Water is life, or was here, but the village replaced its blue plastic and so saved the pond for the future.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. All right? Good. Good. Don't know whose this is. Can I have a go? Never mind Halloween.
Yeah, no, Halloween and fireworks, nah. This is going to be the...
So there you have it, 2 moorhens and 2 ponds. Both started from scratch. A bulldozer up at Clutton, at the big one, is serious scratching. Here at the village it had to be repaired, the blue plastic removed, but the dedicated moorhens came back. Now to rampant greenery, where they can hide if they want to, in their odd, showy or secretive ways.